Hello world, welcome. It's Luann Pygott. It's actually Sunday morning. So I am doing my ministry live in the morning instead of night because I'm always busy at night now with the Toxic Abuse Anonymous app. So I'm going to do it in the morning because it's not real active right now. And I'm calling my live today Grief and Growth. And this was actually something I heard someone say on the app that was talking about grieving because, of course, when you have been through a relationship that broke your heart, you're going to grieve. You're going to grieve like somebody died. And in some ways it's almost worse because you were, not only are they gone, you were betrayed. So I heard this and I looked it up and I actually got a picture to show you. And it's like dealing with grief. And a lot of people will tell you, grief, time cures it. It doesn't. It doesn't. And that over time, grief will shrink over time. And this is what people view it as. So if you look at this black ball in this jar, this starting over here, this is what, when you have grief, what it feels like. Almost fills up your whole life. And then over time goes by and it gets smaller and smaller. This is not actually what happens. And I believe it. I believe it. It doesn't get smaller. Grief doesn't shrink. So what actually happens, this is what I believe actually happens if you are being healed. What actually happens is your grief stays the same size, but you grow. You're the jar. Your grief doesn't shrink. Grief is grief. You grow around your grief. But the thing is, you're not just going to automatically grow. You've got to put some effort into it, and you've got to let God help you grow. So I'm going to read you some verses. And the first ones I'm going to read you are about grieving. Psalm 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. So if you've been brokenhearted, He will heal you. But you have got to belong to Him, and you've got to be going to Him. You've got to be in His Word. You've got to be praying. You've got to be reaching toward it, and maybe doing some other things as well to help you obtain what God has for you. John 14:1 says, Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. If your heart is troubled, see, this is, yes, I believe God is healing you, but this is something God's telling you to do. Don't let it be troubled. Don't you control your heart. And you say, well, how can I do that? We have a program on the app that'll help with that. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Get to a place where you can quit being troubled, and then He will heal your broken heart and bind up your wounds. Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. You may be mourning. We may all be mourning, but you will be comforted. 1 Peter 5:7. This is something else we need to do. It isn't just sit back and wait for God to do something. Yes, we are waiting for God to heal us, but there are some things we can do, some things we must do. Here is one of them we must do. Cast all your cares upon Him because He cares for you. If you do not cast your cares upon Him, you're not going to be healed because you're holding them. You cannot hold tight what is hurting you and say, God, heal me. In one hand, you got what's hurting. In the other hand, you're asking for healing. You've got to let go and cast it on Him. You've got to let go of it and cast it on Him. That is something you need to do. Psalm 30:5, weeping may remain for a night. This tells us we will go through sorrow and mourning in this life, but rejoicing comes in the morning. And we are all looking forward to our morning. Now I'm going to read you some verses about growing because your grief isn't going to shrink. You are going to be able to grow around it. Hebrews 6:1, therefore let us leave the elementary doctrine of Christ and go on to maturity. So yes, we learn, when you are new, you learn the elementary things. You learn the beginning things, but you don't just stay there. You need to move into spiritual maturity. 1 Timothy 4:15 and 16, practice these things. Immerse yourself in them so that all may see your progress. So we are supposed to be making progress. If you are not making spiritual progress, something's wrong. You're stagnant and you are not going to receive anything out of your relationship with God. You've got to progress. Keep a close watch on yourself. Something else we are to be doing. Keep a close watch on yourself and on the teaching. That is stuff that's our responsibility. Keep a watch on yourself and on the teaching. If you find yourself veering off, you pull yourself back into alignment with what is right. Persist in this. Something else for us to do. Persist. For by doing so, you will save both yourself and your hearers. This is something I think is so vital to the entire planet's population. You are not only doing this to progress in your own life, to progress in your own healing, and your own growth in growing in God, not just to save yourself. And this says you will save both yourself and your hearers. Do you know you have hearers? You say, well, I'm not talking to anybody. They may not be literal hearers. They may be watchers. They may be people who are listening to you, following you, watching you. They're there. They are there. And maybe you progressing and obtaining being saved is going to let them do the same. You have people, I believe, that are assigned to you, that you are kind of spiritually responsible for, that they're going to follow in your steps. Are you taking steps in the right direction? 2 Peter 3:18, but grow. This is another thing telling us to grow. You must grow. But grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I'll tell you something about growing. It's sometimes painful. Growth is sometimes painful because we have got to let the things in us that shouldn't be there die. And that can be painful. But when you get that out of you, you're going to find so much more healing and relationship with God that you never would have had before. Philippians 1:9, and it is my prayer that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and discernment. We need love, knowledge, and discernment. Proverbs 1:5, let the wise hear and increase in learning. This is telling us what to do. If you are wise, first of all, if you're not wise, pray and ask God for wisdom. But then if you are wise, hear this and increase in learning. We must still be learning. You cannot just say, well, I know all about it now. You never know all about it. There's always learning. And the one who understands, obtain guidance. We still need to be seeking God for these things. Job 8:7 says, I love this, though your beginning was small, your latter days will be very great. That's what happened to Job. He went through so much grief and loss, and he had great beginning days, but God said they were small. But your latter days will be very great. I feel like my beginning was so small, but it was so significant because I began it with God, and I stayed with God through all the hard times and the heartbreaks and the heartaches and the pain and the sorrow. I stayed with God, and now I am looking for my latter days to be very great. So I'm going to sing a song. I'm actually surprised I haven't sung this song before. It's an older song, and it's one I used to really like. I had it on a tape, listened to it all the time, and suddenly remembered it the other day and thought, oh, I've never even sung this on a live in all this time I've been doing these lives. Why haven't I done this? I don't know. It's called There's a Light at the End of the Darkness. So if you feel like you're in darkness, I promise you there's a light, but go to the light. You've got to make effort to go to the light. The light is there for you, but you have got to make some effort to go to the light. I'm going to see if I can sing it today. My throat, this is the thing about doing this in the morning. I have morning throat. But I'm going to sing Let This Song Bless You. There's a light at the end of the darkness, and it shines for all the world to see. It's as near as your faith that sometimes seems fleeting. I was blind when it finally shined on me. There is hope in that light for the hopeless, and a soothing balm for pain and misery. It will shine in your heart if you will let it. I was blind when it finally shined shine, shine on me. Revelation 21:4 says, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. I cannot wait to see how that feels. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. How great that's going to be. And finally, John 16:22 says, Now is your time of grief. You may be in a time of grief, but he says, I will see you again, and you will rejoice. You might be going through a time of grief right now, but he's promised, I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. He is bringing us joy. We're going to see him again. We're going to rejoice, and our joy will never be taken from us. Until that day, may you be blessed and be amazing. And until next time, goodbye.